Kalimera σας. Good morning. Thank you for being here. It's a difficult day to move around Athens, so we appreciate your presence. We are here for the conclusion of the visit of the LIBE delegation to Greece, and we're going to hear from the chair of the delegation, MEP Sophie IN'T VELD. For better flow of the discussion and because the press conference is being streamed, we would appreciate if the conversation can primarily take place in English. Nevertheless, there are headphones for your own use. If you would like to receive simultaneously the translation in Greek, this is possible. And if by any chance it's totally impossible to have the question, to ask a question in English, we can also support a question being asked in Greek. This is, of course, not a problem. So, without further ado, I give the floor to the chair of the delegation for her remarks on this visit.
Yes, thank you. I will speak English. Αλλά πρώτα απ' όλα θέλω να πω δύο λόγια στη γλώσσα σας, στους Έλληνες. Εκ μέρους όλων των συναδελφών μου θα ήθελα να απευθύνω τα βαθιά συλληπιτήριά μας στις οικογένειες των θυμάτων και σε όλους. Να εκφράσουμε την συμπαράστασή μας στον ελληνικό λαό. Οι λέξεις «πάρε με όταν φτάσεις» έχουν γίνει πλέον σύμβολο άφατου πόνου και πένθους, καθώς αδυνατούμε να πιστέψουμε ότι τόσοι νέοι άνθρωποι χάθηκαν άδικα. Γνωρίζουμε ότι η τραγωδία αυτή έχει σημαδέψει το Πανελλήνιο και ως Ευρωπαίοι συμπαραστεκόμαστε στους Έλληνες και στις Ελληνίδες. Ευχαριστώ. Now I'll continue in English. The delegation came to Athens in the context of its ongoing monitoring exercise of democracy, the rule of law and fundamental rights, as we do in the whole of the European Union. Our visit covered a wide range of topics, including media freedom and safety of journalists, migration policies, human rights and equal treatment, the use of spyware, the rule of law and the fight against corruption. The delegation is grateful for the rich and frank exchange with all our interlocutors. It regrets that the Prime Minister, government ministers, police representatives, the Supreme Court prosecutor and other officials were unavailable. Although Greece has a solid institutional and legal framework, a vibrant civil society and independent media, the delegation notes that there are very serious threats to the rule of law and fundamental rights. Checks and balances, essential for a robust democracy, are under heavy pressure. Scrutiny by dedicated bodies and free press is hollowed out. Justice is extremely slow and ineffective, leading to a culture of impunity. Corruption is eroding public services and goods. Nearly 2 years after the murder of Yorgos Karaivas, there is no visible progress in the police investigation. Not only is no justice done to his family, but it sends a message that safety of journalists is no priority for the government. The case must be investigated without further delay, and the delegation urges the authorities to request assistance from Europol. In addition, many journalists are confronted with physical threats, verbal attacks, violation of their privacy with spyware or slaps. Media ownership by a small number of oligarchs negatively impacts media freedom and pluralism, resulting sometimes in dramatic underreporting on certain topics. In the aftermath of the train accident, a common statement by Greek media organizations also highlighted this problem. The delegation expresses concern about the underfunding, understaffing, curtailing of powers, opaque appointment procedures, and harassment and intimidation of officials of independent public bodies, such as the Ombudsman, the Data Protection Authority, and the Authority for Communication Security and Privacy, ADAE. The delegation furthermore notes that the National Transparency Agency, which should play a vital role in scrutinizing public authorities, does not seem to be effective. The ongoing harassment of anti-corruption prosecutor Touloupaiki is also cause for grave concern. The length of judicial proceedings, compound with doubts over the integrity of parts of the police force, lead to a culture of impunity where corruption can thrive. These issues must be remedied as a matter of priority. The treatment of migrants at the external borders and domestically, including reports about pushbacks, violence, arbitrary detention and theft of their belongings, is highly unsettling. The restrictions imposed on monitoring and reporting by NGOs and journalists on migration situations should be lifted immediately. All initiatives contributing to more transparency, such as the pushback reporting mechanism by the Human Rights Commission, must be embraced and enhanced. With regard to equal treatment, Greece has a solid legal framework, and the creation of the new Human Rights Commission is a positive step. However, the practice is very different for example, LGBTI people, Roma people, and women. The delegation calls on all political forces to show leadership and promote societal change. Particular issues to be addressed are domestic violence, police violence, and marriage equality. Finally, the legislative process needs to be improved by introducing real and meaningful consultation and by abolishing the controversial practice of omnibus legislation. And then all I wanted to say is a very big thank you to all the staff of the office, the staff of the delegation, and the interpreters who've done an amazing job. And I think you have made this visit to a very big success. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We will now take some questions. I would like to kindly ask you to state your name and medium before submitting your question to the Chair. Thank you.
Nectaria Stamouli from Politico. I would like to ask, considering the fact that you didn't see any government officials and considering the fact that you mentioned a number of warnings, how do you plan to proceed? Do you plan a follow-up visit? Do you plan to issue a report? What are the next steps? And if there's something that you think the European Parliament can actually do to improve the situation that you described?
Is there, maybe we'll take another question and you can answer. Is there any other question we can take at this stage? Yes, please.
Tasso Teloglu from Said Story. I would like to ask you, when exactly did the police, and especially the judiciary, the prosecutor of the High Court, inform you that he was not going to meet you?
In addition to this question, Kaki Bali from Avgi, I would like to ask you, did you have the idea that it was a deal between the Greek government and the persecutor not to come and see you?
Okay, let's start with those.
Okay, let me take them in inverse order. As to the last question, I think that's a question you should put to them. We have extended an invitation and they accept or don't. As to the cancellation, I don't know the exact time. I would have to check with the Secretariat, but it was very last moment. As to further steps, yes, we will report back to Parliament. I mean, I have, as the chair of the Democracy, Rule of Law and Fundamental Rights Monitoring Group, I always report regularly to LIBE on all our activities, but there will also be a specific mission report, and when we return to Brussels, we will see if any other follow-up should be considered, maybe in the form of a debate or a resolution, but that will have to be discussed when we're back.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this stage? Yes, please.
Hello, Yannis Simeonidis from CNN Greece. How necessary was it for your visit to take place this week, because of the rail crash that took place last week, could it have been postponed for next week or for 2 weeks later so that government officials wouldn't have any sort of excuse not to see you?
Well, you know, this mission has been planned months ago. The presidency of the European Parliament last week considered, took a vote even, and decided that it was appropriate to go ahead. I also feel, having been here and having spoken to people, having met people, that that was the right decision. You know, as I said earlier, we have invited a number of people. It is for them to decide whether or not to accept, and they should answer why they didn't accept it. That's not for me to say.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have any other questions? Yes, please.
On pressures on independent authorities you've cited and other very serious issues you have described, is there a possibility you have considered or you're going to consider recommending in your mission report the consideration of rule of law conditionality procedures, or you would consider them open because of the evidence you have gathered during your trip?
Well, as I said also to your colleague, we will see exactly what follow-up there will be, and I've mentioned a range of issues where we have concerns, and we will see what kind of recommendations we will come up with. The conditionality mechanism is, let's say, at least in first instance, something that the European Commission is governing, but we have concerns. I mean, I think that's the most important conclusion at this point in time. We have spoken to a number of independent bodies, scrutiny bodies who play a vital role in democracy, because, you know, I firmly believe that checks and balances is the very core, the very essence of democracy, powers and countervailing powers. And if countervailing powers, be they independent bodies or be they free media or civil society, if they are weakened, eroded, if their independence is under pressure, then that's a threat to democracy and the rule of law. And yes, we will flag it up. In what form and with what kind of consequences we'll see. I think it is important to conclude that this is happening.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the room? No? Okay, so I guess this means this press conference is concluded. Thank you very much. The members will be in the room for a bit longer if you need to talk to them. Thank you.